tonight, Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs breaks silence on the arrest and detention of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as Minister Samuel Kojo Ablakwa announces the United States government's assurance of no intervention in repatriating the former Finance Minister. And former MASLOC boss Sedinam Tamakloe Attionu. We have details plus here from former Defence Minister Dominic Nitiwul, who takes on the U.S. government, describing as unfair the handling of the former Finance Minister in the last 8 days.
I feel sad that the U.S. can treat a Ghanaian former diplomat like that. That's all I can say. I feel very sad because I have sat with Ofori-Atta in some of the top meetings and top officials of the United States that we can find. But we're in a world where sometimes might is right. That's the sort of world that we live in now.
We have details here on Top Story, brought to you always by Telecel Connecting Energies, Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil, and also by Short Pension Trust into the future with you. Is Top Story, as always, brought to you by Telecel Holy Insecticide Spray and Short Pension Trust into the future with you. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Now, Ghana's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, has finally broke his silence over the arrest and detention of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, conveying what the official position of the United States government is on this particular matter. Ken Ofori-Atta was arrested by officers of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE following what we now learn is his continued stay in the U.S. despite the revocation of his visa. Although it is still unclear under what circumstances his visa was revoked, information from his lawyers indicates that Mr. Ofori-Atta had applied for extension of his stay in the U.S. prior to his stay. We'll get the latest on this from the Foreign Affairs Minister shortly. But first, Ghana's ambassador to the United States, Victor Smith, had earlier told JoyNews that his embassy had extended some diplomatic assistance to Ken Ofori-Atta, which was declined.
The extent of my involvement at this stage was when he had been picked up. I discussed it with the consular officers of my embassy, and we decided to make a request to make sure that he was being treated properly as the protocols, international protocols. And so we requested, and they agreed in principle to allow us to come and visit. But just before we set out, the ICE people came again and said the detainee had refused to meet with us without his lawyers. That was the initial response from the detention center. And they were going to go back to him and probably request that his lawyers appear so we can come and verify for ourselves that he's being treated fairly. But we waited for a while. After about a few hours, they came back to us to say the detainee, being the ex-minister, had refused now to see us under any circumstance. So that was the end of the road for me and the embassy.
So that was Ghana's ambassador to the United States, Victor Smith. There, Samuel Kojo Brace, who is our Foreign Affairs Minister, has in a statement today made reference to this particular case. And my colleague James Savage joins me with details of that. James, now this post is about a mirage of issues or a myriad of issues that came up in this particular meeting between the Foreign Affairs Minister and the U.S. Ambassador. What exactly did he say about Ken and Sedinam?
So Brace, the post was on his social media accounts updating the public on a meeting that's happened between him as well as the U.S. ambassador to Ghana on a number of issues. First talks about the visa restrictions issues between Ghana and the U.S., thanking the U.S. For the U.S. president for lifting those visa restrictions that it imposed $15,000 a restriction that he imposed on other countries that Ghana is not under. That went on to talk about the extension of AGOA in favor of African countries, and also talks about the moves they are making in order to fast track the visa application for Ghanaians as far as the World Cup is concerned. It is in that post that he made a one sentence announcement on what the outcome has been as far as discussions on Ken Ofori-Atta and Sedinam has been on the issue. And he said the U.S. ambassador to Ghana has given the U.S. government assurance of no intervention or interference in any move by the government of Ghana in order to remove these two persons, both Ken Ofori-Atta and Sedinam Tamakloe Attionu, from the United States of America. And so that's the assurance he's received from the U.S. ambassador to Ghana as far as these two issues are concerned in that particular post.
So more like there will be no objection to the decision to remove them.
Should in case the government of Ghana make any move to remove the two. What is unclear is whether the government of Ghana has initiated any of such step for such a matter to come up in such a diplomatic engagement between the two parties, for the U.S. government to give such assurance to Ghana through its ambassador to the country.
Well, this event, as it unfolds in the last 8 days, has drawn a lot of reactions from the public. And the latest to comment on this matter is former Defence Minister, who is taking on the U.S. government over what he describes as unfair treatment of the Ghanaian statesman in the last 8 days. He spoke to Defence Minister on PM Express on Tuesday.
I feel sad that the U.S. can treat a Ghanaian former diplomat like that. That's all I can say. I feel very sad because I sat with Ofori-Atta in some of the top meetings and top officials of the United States that we can find. But we're in a world where sometimes might is right. That's the sort of world that we live in now.
So that was former Ghana's Defence Minister Dominic Nitiwul. But apologies for the challenges we are facing there. We have to bring that sound to you, but because of the technical difficulties, we are not able to bring that to you. We'll try our best. Now, he also went ahead to say that this serves a warning to political leaders and a call to work to develop a better infrastructure fit enough to take care of citizens and to curb the rate at which leaders run to other countries for health care. These were some of the things he said. The Dominic Nitiwul, Ghana's former Defence Minister, said to Evans Mings on PM Express Tuesday concerning this particular developing matter. But let's take you back and try and bring you that sound in which he spoke, heavily on the U.S. government to say that what they are doing is an unfair treatment of the former Ghanaian Finance Minister, whom he describes as a Ghanaian statesman in the last 8 days. He spoke to Evans Mensah. Listen to him again.
A Ghanaian former diplomat like that. That's all I can say. I feel very sad because I have sat with Ofori-Atta in some of the top meetings and top officials of the United States that we can find. The highest you can find, except maybe president, not even the vice, because I have had meetings where the vice president herself was part of those meetings. The top people you could find, and they know him. I'm just sad. But we're in a world where sometimes might is right. That's the sort of world that we live in now. But for me, I feel sad. I'll leave it at that. I feel very, very sad. It's not about him. It can happen to any Ghanaian diplomat or former diplomat. And I'll feel the same way. That somebody who you know that you don't know that he can run, know that he's a criminal that you know, somebody who has sat with the best of the best, the most influential you can find in your system. If he's treated like this, I think it's very unfortunate, extremely unfortunate. I'm very, very sad. I've sat in some of the most important people around the world, from Saudi Arabia to the UK to the US to Canada to where I don't know which country I have not sat with some of the top people. And tomorrow somebody will just, because I'm in the country for some reason, catch me and put him in some facility for the fact what crime have I committed? If I'm being accused of committing a crime in my country, have I committed a crime in the United States? Have I? What crime have I committed in the current host country in which I am staying? I feel very, very sad and emotional, but what can I do? My powers are just like the powers of a cockroach in the land of lions when you compare to what is happening. I have no power. I can only say, and then I'll leave it. What else can I do? I can only express these words. I can do anything about it, but I think that it shouldn't happen to anybody. But if I compare to what is happening around the world, to some of the most important people around the world, I can only say that I'm not surprised about the Ofori-Atta case. But we see what is happening around the world. We've seen some treatment being meted to some of the most important people in countries, where other countries, the way they treat them. So what can we do?
Well, he says this serves a warning to political leaders in Ghana and a call to work to develop a better infrastructure fit to take care of citizens and cap the rate at which leaders run to other countries for healthcare.
We can only say that we pray that God gives us life, then we leave a better country for our people so that our people can remain here and be people and have a good life. That's my motivation. That's some of the things that are happening. It should spur all of us as politicians and future politicians to build a better country for ourselves so that we don't have to go any other place. That is the motivation I use. Some of these things for me serve as a motivation for me that, hey, go out there and build a country for yourself. Sacrifice. Stop all the corruption. If there's any corruption that people do, sacrifice for people, work hard if you get an opportunity, give it your all, and make sure that you build a system, build a country where your people don't have to go to any other place. Because if a former minister can go through like this, then I'm wondering how other Ghanaians are going through. You can imagine those who have never had titles like this, what they are going through. And I know Ghanaians who are also being taken, not just in America, but around the world. So I can imagine what they are going through. Very dehumanizing situations that some of them are going through. If a minister, former minister, or a president can go through like this, what about ordinary people? So for me, take it from me, I would take this as a motivation to make sure that we build a nation for ourselves, a nation where we can be proud of, where we have what we want and what we can do. And I'm saying that we should take this as a motivation and together build. Unite and build. The fighting among the political class is too much. It's terribly too much. And it's undermining each other. We're undermining each other. The fighting is too much. We're rather creating problems for ourselves. We need to unite and build a better nation. Otherwise, things like this will continue.
This is still top story. Let's now bring in Janelle Oklu. She is a UK-based immigration lawyer to help us, with some education on this. We're grateful to you for joining. Now, what's your own understanding if the U.S. government, according to our Foreign Affairs Minister, says that they will not interfere in removing these two, Sedinam, Tamakloe, and Ken Ofori-Atta, from the U.S.?
Thank you very much for having me on your program this evening. And I think you mentioned UK. It's actually US. I'm a US-based immigration lawyer.
Sure.
So to be clear, when the United States government says that without, and I did read the foreign minister's statement, and he said, quote, without prejudice to judicial processes. Okay, they will not interfere. So now to keep in mind that when we say the United States government, we're speaking of the United States executive, okay? So meaning the US's Department of State, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security. However, in the United States, we have separation of powers. So whereas the executive may say that, okay, we are not going to interfere with Ghana's request to have Mr. Ofori-Atta removed back to Ghana, Mr. Ofori-Atta still has access to the courts in the United States. So it is possible that the judge who hears his case could decide to have him remain in the United States.
Now, I mean, do you get the impression that some moves must have been triggered by the Ghanaian government in this regard?
I would say I suspect so. Because when you consider the timing of Mr. Ofori-Atta's detention by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, here in the United States. I mean, if you consider that first the Ghanaian government did make an extradition request to the United States. So basically requesting the United States, all right, to have Mr. Ofori-Atta sent back to Ghana for official investigation to face charges in Ghana. So in fact, these are two different processes, but they can happen in parallel. So to say that the extradition request, that is to return to Ghana to face charges in Ghana, that is one process. Separately is the possibility of a deportation process, which deportation, many people don't realize, deportation is nothing to do with a criminal. Okay, someone is deported from the US, it's a civil charge. It's simply because either they've overstayed their visa, or in this case, his visa has been canceled. And so that's why he was picked up by ICE. But I do think that to some extent, yes, there's cooperation between the two governments, Ghana government and United States government, because in many ways, the process of deportation is like, how do I say, it's more of a simple process, meaning if he doesn't have a visa, which now the US government has revoked his visa, and if he does not have another grounds by which to be in the US, then he can be deported. Whereas when it comes to the extradition process, he actually has to go before the US federal court for the judge here in America to decide if Ghana can extradite him back to the country.
If that's the case, and we know that he's to face the US, a US judge, is it on the extradition request or on the deportation?
Okay, so it can be both. So as I mentioned, the two can be happening in parallel. To my understanding, the hearing that he has coming up on January 20th, that is before the immigration judge, okay? So concerning the immigration charges, but separately, there could also be the extradition hearing before a federal judge.
So without the hearing, he cannot be extradited like that.
That is correct. That is correct. That in order for him to be extradited, which is separate from being deported, okay, so that's why I'm saying it's two processes. In order for him to be extradited, a U.S. federal judge must hear the charges that Ghana is bringing forth to see that there is probable cause. And if the U.S. judge has determined that, yes, this is someone that he needs to go, before the authorities in Ghana to face those charges, then he will issue a judgment. The U.S. judge will issue a judgment to have the individual extradited. But to keep in mind, I'm sure Mr. Ofori-Atta, he has a very robust team of lawyers that is representing him right now. So his lawyers, of course, are probably going to be bringing forth any and every defense for him not to be extradited.
But knowing that the Ghanaian authorities wanted to extradite him and hearing that his visa was cancelled, could the two have any correlation, that the visa cancellation was because of the request from Ghana?
Okay. Now, obviously, this is only speculation on my part. I do not have, access to the thought process of the U.S. government. But as an outsider, I would suspect that there's some connection. I would suspect that there's some connection.
Okay. All right. I'm grateful to you for joining us here. Janelle Oklu is a U.S.-based immigration lawyer. Let's bring in a member of the lawyers for Ken Ofori-Atta, Frank Davis. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Davis, for joining. I mean, we first want to know your reaction to this announcement coming from the U.S. ambassador that they do not intend to interfere in any action by the Ghanaian government to remove Ken Ofori-Atta from the U.S.
Good evening once again to cherished listeners and esteemed viewers. I listened in to what the immigration lawyer just said, and a couple of the words she used. It was without prejudice. And if we all understand without prejudice, I wonder why the foreign minister will be waving a white handkerchief as if any significant victory has been hoped. Without prejudice means without prejudice. Let me offer some little education, so that all those who are commingling the eyes pick up and extradition processes would know once and for all, and take themselves out of the web of confusion that they find themselves in. Generally, no extradition requires the involvement of the country where the person is located. That is the requested state, as it were. And here is why. There are sovereignty issues. Okay, a country has jurisdiction over people and territory within its borders. So any person of interest, suspect or accused person could be picked up. Now, extradition usually follows treaties and agreements between countries, and that has to do with international law. There's also due process. The requested state needs to verify the request and ensure that it meets or conforms with legal standards. I think this is what the foreign minister has to understand. So the mere fact that the American ambassador said they will not stand in the way of Ghana, it means that he, the ambassador, is cognizant of the fact that there has to be proper due process. So, and there are significant exceptions. Okay, there's something known as provisional arrest. Some treaties allow for temporary detention without prior approval. There's also Interpol Red Notice, which we are all conversant with now in this country. That is meant to facilitate international cooperation. But of course, you know that in Ken's particular situation, the Red Notice alert was pulled down because he didn't meet the required standards and requirements. There's also what we call unilateral action. A country might arrest someone without formal extradition. But this is rare. It happens rarely because it's risk violating international law. Typically, authorities in a country where the person is located need to be involved before any lawful extradition order can be facilitated. So I cannot comprehend why the foreign minister would decide to put this in the public domain as if tomorrow Ken will be removed from America and brought down to Ghana. I mean, sometimes.
But if the government has to be involved and the same government says, I won't interfere, that sort of gives the Ghanaian government some hope that, well, if by due process we can get him back to Ghana.
Yeah, so don't envelope yourself too into that confusion. If we all understand due process, I didn't think that it was any useful for the foreign minister to come and say what he said after having a personal conversation with the American ambassador. Now let me give you the process steps for any lawful extradition. Okay, there is what we call a request submission. The requesting state, which is Ghana, sends a request to the requested state, which is America. Okay, there is a review process. The requested state checks if the request meets the treaty requirements. And then you come to an arrest. The person can be arrested if the request is valid. And then there's what we call the hearing process. The court decides, as the lady told you. The federal judge will decide whether the extradition is lawful and not the immigration court. And then there is what we call the surrender. After the process, the person is handed over if the extradition process is approved. The requested state hands over the person involved, the person of interest, the suspect or the accused person, to the requesting state.
From where we are now, we are not close to the extradition process yet. We are looking at immigration.
Not at all. There's a fire yard and rope. We are not anywhere close. The people should stop confusing themselves with this ICE thing. The ICE thing is a purely immigration administrative action. And the lady told you, the general lady, she told you. It is a purely administrative action, which is separate and distinct, I've said, from the extradition process. The extradition process goes to a court in the U.S.
So as we speak, you do not have any information that Ghana has started that to get a court to hear that as well. I mean, the extradition.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you also know it. What we know is the notice to appear, which is supposed to come on the 20th of January in respect of the ICE pickup. But as to extradition, nobody has been told.
Okay.
So when Ambassador Smith, now Okudzeto, Ablakwa, they should let Ghanaians understand what is going on. And people who speak on both sides of the political divide should exercise some circumspection in this matter.
Mr.
Ofori-Atta is not fleeing criminal justice in this country. All he is asking for is fairness, due process, and rule of law. So people should stop making all kinds of statements and he has run away, he should come and account. Come on. Ofori-Atta was in this country.
So Mr. Davis, sorry, but
in 2023,
is his absence now from the education you are giving is because he wants fairness and not necessarily because he's not well?
So don't let go into those issues. Said to you that he is going through a recuperative process after his surgery. And he is having consultation with his medical team as to whether he will be fit to travel to the country, as and when.
Okay.
But why this ICE matter came up? And I'm saying, in all of this,
he wants fairness.
If you pay kind attention to what Ofori-Atta has been put through from the time that the Rambo-style raid of his home, when he was not in the country, known to the security apparatus, the Rambo-style raid on his home, for the special prosecutor to come and say that it was state managed. To date, the special prosecutor has not apologized for this careless remark.
All right, but
you think if you were in the shoes, you will not ensure for fairness.
Okay, I'm grateful.
Rule of law and due process.
I'm grateful. But why was his visa cancelled?
Every Ghanaian is entitled to.
Why was his visa cancelled?
Why what?
His visa cancelled.
Why was his visa cancelled?
We are told his visa was cancelled. We want education on that.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
You
right.
you know, so investigate and education.
No, I don't. I wanted education from you.
I don't know about that.
Okay, sir. I'm grateful. Frank Davis is a member of the legal team of Ken Ofori-Atta. This has been Top Story. Up next,